Ooh-wee. Welcome to Under the Palm, y'all. It is 8 o'clock. My name is Amuni Israel, and we have a little feedback, so let me go ahead and fix that post haste here. We're waiting for Sister Mayana to join us. She's having a little issue kind of signing in, so feel free to get your snacks, get your drinks. Hold on, she wants me to send it to another email. Hold on one second, stand by. Y'all take some time, get your bathroom break on. If you would like to join the panel, feel free to hit me up and then I can send you the link. If you would like your voice to be heard on the other side of the computer screen, I'm doing my radio host voice this evening. Hold on one second. I'm not camera ready, y'all. I'm not camera ready. Um, I'm doing my radio host voice. How are you this evening? Hope everyone is doing well this Monday night. I'm trying to get her here. Today's topic is going to be what we're going to do for those who are just joining us. Usually we'll be broadcasting from Debate Talk for You in some capacity, but we're no longer on the Debate Talk for You platform. If you missed all of the goings on, it's not necessarily going to be a gossip session, okay? Because if you have been following the work, I don't really do gossip. Understand? We kind of keep it kind of factual. We have discussions, round tables, and all of the good stuff. So as I'm waiting for Sister Mayana, this is going to be called Post Debate Talk for You, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So again, like I said, if you would like to join the discussion, feel free to do so. The plan is to have and transplant those very important conversations. First of all, I want to say shout out to everyone who reached out, witnessing everything that went down and how it went down, and who reached out to give their, to say that their heart and their prayers were with us and really extend their thought processes, the good, the bad, and the ugly about what went down, how it could have gone better, and how they felt about this. What we have to realize is that when we allow people into our spaces, such as our ears, our home, via the television, our cell phone, wherever it is, we are kind of allowing that person again into our lives, or those people, or that platform, whatever it is, like television shows. People are so connected with what happened to Bill Cosby because the Cosby Show became a part of their growing up experience. And so it is. I don't take it lightly anytime we come to the airways and talk to people like, oh, this is why I personally always try to keep things factual, always try to be on the up and up of the things that we're saying, and invite people to the conversation who it is affecting, so that we can together kind of get an understanding or get a hold on our narrative. And so hopefully going forward, we will be able to keep the same night, Monday nights at 8 o'clock, and bring those important topics. Like one of the topics that's busting off right now, and as y'all can see, I'm just doing the intro waiting for Sister Mayana to come in. But one of the topics that reemerged in this whole debacle, if you can call it that, is this concept of domestic discipline. And I guess we'll come back and talk about that soon. We kind of covered it when we were doing the Rokisha Cutno story about 2 years ago. And one of the supporters of what happened to us says, or tried to say, that this was, or allude to the fact that this was a case of domestic discipline. And we're kind of going to look at that. Was it a case of domestic discipline? We're not going to talk about that all the way today, but right now, if you want to catch up on that after this broadcast, you'll see the conversation popping on, I shared it on Sister Mayana's page. Speaking of whom, we have her here today. Sister Mayana has been able to join us. Sister Mayana, how are you this evening?
Shalom, shalom. I'm doing well. Happy to talk to the people again today.
Awesome. So we are Under the Palm. For those who may be confused, Under the Palm became a segment on Debate Talk for You. It was in its second season, but originally Under the Palm was established over here on the YouTube. And what was happening is that I was trying to bring over a lot of the videos that were done both for UTP and TRC so that it can be in one place. And so it was kind of like an underground project for those who come over here and look around and be like, wow, how did they get all this stuff over here that quick? It was really not like that. It has been here, and it just has been a space where I've been trying to populate over the year plus of all the videos and things that we've done in the past. What are your thoughts on that, Sister Miami?
No, I think, and no, you're absolutely right. It's completely awesome to be back on I guess home back on our original channel in our original space. And in fact it was on Under the Palm that did Debate Talk for You did its first live. Like the first live go live from Debate Talk for You was actually done by us.
Correct.
We went into Debate Talk for You and went live. So it was very interesting to see um, the claim that for the very first time ever, Debate Talk for You went live just a couple of days ago. So that was really interesting, like a kind of reimagining of history and a sort of erasure of all of the work we've done there. Like, yeah, they didn't do it. We're the first to ever do it. That was really interesting.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. This is, for me, a lot of what I experience is always a teaching moment. After I process my experience, I look at for the lessons that I can learn, or maybe the warning signs that I missed along the way, and then try to put it in a way that we can share with the listening audience. Once again, speaking to the listening audience, if you have been witnessing what has been transpiring and you have a burning sensation in your heart that you just want to speak about it, feel free to hit me up and I'll shoot you the link so that you can come on in and let your voice be heard. But so for those who are here, I know why you're here. We know y'all are here. You know why you're here. Okay? You here to find out what had happened. You feel me? And we here to tell you what had happened was. So the name of tonight's show is Post Post Debate Talk for You, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And once again, I did go live from my Solonomics channel. That's my phone. Um, Yesterday, speaking about verbal abuse for you. And so I'm going to revisit some of that as well, because those are some of the lessons that I took away from this past experience. So Mayana, the good, the bad, the ugly, that's like, when we were like, well, what are we going to name this thing? And then it comes to me, the good, the bad, and ugly. I'm not one that, once you move on from a space, then everything is bad. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it'd be like, you ain't never was nothing anyway. Like, that's low tone. That's not fair. That's not just. And so it's important to kind of like acknowledge all of the different spaces that were beneficial, the things that were not so beneficial, and the things that were just downright ugly. So let's start on a good note. What was some of the good from Debate Talk for you, or from your experience with Debate Talk for you?
Well, we to not just establish, but to solidify and model really positive interactions across the board. In both TRC and UTP, everybody put their flags away. Nobody was, Team Torah. Nobody was Team New Testament. It was all about the work. It was all about the build. It was all about the nation. And for the most part, the people that participated in the forums understood the mission, stuck to the mission, respected the mission, and went along with that. And we were very we were able to make respectable relationships with the masculine principle without there being any of that, you're a boy, I'm a girl, let's talk about our genitals and draw lines in the sand based on those types of genetic differences. But instead, or even again, these doctrinal differences, those went away. Instead, we were looking at those things that were common to us as Hebrews, as a displaced but returning people, though people that wanted to be pleasing to the Most High, even if our current methods of doing so may have differed, our spaces of understanding may have different, our level of researching may have difference, how long we have been in the truth versus those that are just coming in. None of those were the determining factors. As long as you had a sincere heart to work on what was current in the community, then the conversation was open, and I thought that was a really amazing a really amazing thing. I guess,
Right.
for lack of a better word. So for me, that was great. I mean, in the beginning, and I'll end on this. In the beginning, we had a producer that said that he was looking out for us, treated us like sisters. In the beginning, he was someone who said, "I'm going to protect you from people who might." Resent that you have a voice on this platform. I will protect you from people that might use the fact that you're women against you. Don't worry about them. I'll take them on. You ladies just do what you do. I'll
Right.
make sure that you have safe passage to go ahead and
Mhm.
do what you do.
And I'll have to agree with that. Actually, I have to share the link. I would have to agree with all that Mayana said, that for those who are listening, and many people who are like, I'm so disappointed to see what is happening and the way in which things have gone. But yes, in the beginning, you know how they used to like, we used to eat popcorn and candy, and we used to take a walk on the boardwalk, you know what I mean? And so in the beginning, you did have a lot of resistance to this new type of discussion. I would say for myself, just looking at when I first happened upon the platform, there was a lot of masculine energy. I was told there was a lot of masculine energy. And I was also told, or I invited to share a bit of balance, and not just balance, but healing balance. So my objective has and always will be and continues to be to restore this balance, this with not only the masculine and feminine principle, but with the individual within themselves, within their soul, that hence solonomics. And so when I came on and seeing, and as we were brainstorming of what could happen, I kind of just merged what I was doing in private, which was not something that I aired to the public, which was a closed session. I kind of took that concept and said I wanted to have both voices at the table. And so it's funny to hear some of the accusations that come down the pipe now, when all the time, even if I didn't agree with what was being said, I always was permissive on, and allowed the voices of everyone to be heard so that we can get to a certain point. And that was really good in being able to do so. Like I said, I thank everybody who has reached out and said, you know what, you all were bringing topics that were not being spoken about. We were going head on with doctrines. Actually, our first show was about something that had been plaguing the community and still continues to plague the community, which is, does laying with the woman make her your wife? Which, by the way, if you haven't seen that one, it's on this channel. So when we're done here, just go ahead and click on it and watch it and let us know your thoughts. That one was, I thought, when we thought about what was a major thing to address. And again, we had people who were willing to sit down at the table and have these discussions. And so was it with season 1 and season 2. Early on, I told Brother Sal that I wanted to bring in Sister Mayana because I saw her doing things in the trenches and pushing back on false doctrines. And so it made for good teamwork, and that we were able to brainstorm and bring these very important issues about, not being able to take care of your household, and what are the major issues within relationships and things, because without a strong foundation, you wouldn't have a family. And so for that, I would say that the platform was excellent. Those were the very good spaces within the platform that allowed us to break the ice, so to say, and shine the light in these very dark places. Would you say so, Sister Mayana?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I would add to that that we heard from like a major player, and we want to give a shout out to Brother Awar for
And,
sticking it out, rocking out season 1, season 2. He even
and
testified, at first it was a little rocky, but as we got to know each other, the vibe got better. Every week, no matter where we went with it, the next time we came back, yo, shalom, brother, shalom, sister, and it was all good because we understood that it was never personal. It was always about the material. It was always about the information, and it was never about how we felt about each other as people. So every single, you would listen, no matter how rocky the conversation got, and whatever episode you tune into, the very next episode, we always greeted each other in love. The fact that he was male, the fact that he was messianic, had nothing to do with me being female and me being Torah. But the fact is, we come together every week because we're family every week. And so even when this comes to a head, after not even speaking and not even being able to work in the same circles for quite a bit, he comes on to say, look, this all love with these sisters, it would be a loss to the platform if these sisters left. And I think that says a lot about our ability to build respectful relationships.
I would agree. Hold on one second. I'm sorry about that. I would agree that I think the highlight of the farewell episode, if you didn't hear it, was a war calling in. And that's to show you, for those who are in the comment section who don't know us. And let me just say this, a war oftentimes didn't have a heads up on what the episode was going to be about. Like, he would just show up ready to chop it up. You know what I'm saying? And not to hear from him for so long, and to hear from him, that really meant like, wow, you know what I'm saying? You really made that connection. And eventually he understood what we were about. We were about, and continue to be about, what you saw in that peer review, which is we have to have a quality assurance with all of us, sector within our space, to not allow erroneous doctrine to pass the gate. anything that you do business wise, be it producing clothing or producing food or producing technology or producing tires, you have to be tested and approved. And one of our issues that we experience in the community is that if you have a Bible and you think it can be, and if you have a YouTube or a blog talk, and then you can, gather people onto yourself, now you have a crowd, and you have a great amount of people that you can mislead.
Mm-hmm.
And so this in a way that, with each person bringing their own personality to the table, I think for those who listen back to those episodes, some people will be like, I just want straight teaching. But for me, unless we can get out, when you're detoxing, you have to pull out the toxins that are within. It doesn't make sense to stuff vitamins and healthy food into a toxified system. And so discussion allows us to process the information and bring back up the errant doctrine. And so this is why, for me, a roundtable type of discussion as siblings was very important and instrumental in what you experienced of our tenure at Debate Talk for You. Sister Minor, what are your thoughts?
No, I would agree with that 100% because that's what we experienced. And to those that were saying or would say, well, where are like kind of straightforward teaching where it's just this scripture, this scripture, this scripture, and then interpretation. One of the things that Amuna and I have emphasized throughout our tenure on Debate Talk for You and our personal and private spaces and other spaces that we work together is that the Torah is practical. So it's important to have conversations so we can see how all of these concepts and all of these principles relate to our day-to-day life. It's very easy to put them all in a box and say, well, let's go visit this religious or faith kind of based moment. If we keep talking about it in terms of scripture, 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 it's very easy to make it that Sunday visit.
Right, right.
Right. But if we say, well, you know what, we're hurting in this space. Let's look at these wounds. Let's look at what's being exploited daily. Let's look at where we're having errors daily, and then see how the Torah accounts for that. Then that's practical. That's how you can live it out. So when we talk about things like the sexual relationships between people, when we talk about abuse with the children, when we talk about other elements in the community, that's living and breathing. And we have a habit of saying we don't want to see it living and breathing. We need to see it in the box. That way we can go back and visit the box and then leave the box and go back and do our regular lives.
So we got for the most part, people put Torah in a petri dish. It's that's
Right.
what I just envisioned when you was talking. I was like, okay, so Torah's in a petri dish, and you got your white suit on with your little pokey, what I'm saying, little thongs and stuff, and you're like, tweezers, and you're moving stuff around trying to create a reaction based on what you want to see. And then, it, as you say, and I continue to say, it's practical. It's something that's living and breathing. If someone says that you didn't teach Torah, not realizing that Torah is the universal blueprint of creation. When you look through your window, that's Torah. When the sun rises every day, that's Torah. When the moon is in the sky, that's Torah. When you have signs and seasons, that's Torah.
Right.
So Torah, it spells it out. But when you look outside of you, when your body functions in the way in which it was created to function, that's Torah. So one of the major issues that I found in our community is that we really don't understand what Torah is.
Right.
And so therefore we try to trap it in between Genesis to Deuteronomy or between Genesis to Malachi, right? And then we say, if I don't see it here, which is not historically placed, because even in the time of Moshe, they were like, Moshe is like, hold on, wait a minute. Good question. I'll be back.
Right.
But because we don't have that access in today's space and time, we become limited, and it's no longer a growing body of work. It's something that we get to argue with and grapple with and argue over. And that's one of the bad aspects of the platform that I saw, which was this never-ending contention of everybody's viewpoints, but not really a point where we get to where we say, now what's the course of action? You know
Before
what
we
I'm
move
saying?
on,
Go ahead.
before we move on to the bad part, because I think we definitely need to get to that. I want to add to the imagery. I get, it's absolutely this idea of going into the laboratory when we're talking about going into Torah. Definitely it has its own kind of separate space from our everyday life. It's the lab. We go into the lab when we want to go to go into Torah, but then we leave the lab when we want to go out and do things. But another image that I would submit for consideration to the listening audience is that we come from a space that when we open the Bible, that wasn't done everywhere. It was only done in a particular place and it was only done in a particular way. So we're still looking for it to be done that way. We're not looking for it to be done in school spaces, and we're not looking for it to apply in the grocery store because that's not what we're used to. When we heard
Mm,
Bible verses, it wasn't done in the grocery store. It wasn't done in the hood. It wasn't done during basketball. That wasn't the place for the Bible. If I'm playing basketball, that has nothing to do with the Bible. If I'm in church, church is where Bible is being spoken. That's the only place you can do it, and it can only look that way. And there has to be a teacher in the front, and there has to be this. I'm jotting down notes.
right, right,
And that's one of the things that I wanted to contest when I decided to go and have like this sisterhood meeting. One of the reasons why I don't belong to a Knesset is because I don't like being lectured at. I feel like these things have to be interactive. I need to hear how these scriptures are living and breathing in the person that I'm talking to, for them to say, okay, I can see that. Because when I was talking to my mom, or when I was growing up, or when I was having this interaction at the grocery store, or just yesterday when I was when I was coming off of the bus, I need to hear that. I don't want to lecture to anybody for 3 hours and then sing hallelujah, play the drums, and send them about their business. It has
right.
to be a conversation because for me it's practical. This is another reason why I don't go to, or I don't belong to a specific Knesset, because that's not the space for conversation or interaction. That's the space to hear someone who prepared a lesson for me to do nothing but listen to it. There's really no difference for me. That's my personal interaction with those kinds of things. So that's another reason why I really appreciated what we did on Debate Talk for You and what Amun and I do in other spaces, because the point is, and in the beginning of every conversation is, we invite other people to interact with us and tell us what they're getting from it, what they're looking for. It's always a conversation. It's not that Amun and I have to be the only voices in the room and we're the ones in the room that know everything. It's never been that.
All right, for those who just joined us, we are having a discussion under the palm post debate talk for you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're on the good right now. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Feel free to let your voices be heard. I see slap boxes in the comments. I'm going to come to your comment, as well as Brother Amatia is in the comments. So let us know if you're in the comment section. Throw your name up on the board. We'll give you a shout out in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned to some of the information. We're going to come back with the domestic discipline, y'all. You know what I'm saying? I have to do the little because that joint is lit it right now over on the other side, where a brother tried to tell me that, what we experienced, which is the ugly, so y'all got to wait and stay tuned, was a part of some type of virtual domestic discipline. So we definitely going to go into that. But as you said, the good, there was much good, because I wouldn't stay at a place. I'm the type of person that I'm not that type of person that at this point in my life that's going to endure madness and foolishness. As you can
Right.
see in my farewell video, I'll piece you out in a heartbeat. You understand? I'm going to stick with you until I see that I'm the only one sticking. Do you understand? And
Mhm.
so I say that to say, by moonlighting days as a reggae artist, I selected the name Sojourner. So that can tell you where my mindset is, that I sojourn in certain places for a moment and do what it is that Most High has me to do, because ultimately my eyes is on the prize. You understand? And so that was what I came to ultimately with this experience, is that we spoke about all the things. You don't know how much back work, how much brainstorming, how much research, how much, all of that went into these episodes and these shows. It wasn't for views necessarily. It was for reaching the people who needed to hear it. You understand? And it was for leaving this kind of cookie crumb trail that eventually that one sister who wished she had heard of it, or wish she had someone to talk to, is going to venture to the internet and put in that search key and get some relief. Or that brother who wasn't certain. You see what I'm saying? We don't know. I have had people reach out to me, be like, I don't know what led me to your video.
Right.
right? And it gave me some relief. It was just what I was looking for. It was the answers I had been asking the creator for. And so when
Right.
you create in that spirit, and when you do your work in that spirit, you kind of just you do it, and then you allow the Most High to add the increase. And
Right.
so that has been what we have done at Debate Talk for You. Sister Monica could tell you that sometimes it was a lot of people on the panel, and then sometimes, like when we talk about situations of domestic abuse in the household, when we talk about situations that make people not feel so good, make people have to do some self-reflection, it gets ghosts. You know what I'm saying? People don't want to hear that. That's not entertaining. It's not something that can distract me. But then again, it's something that needs to be said. And if it's not today, it's going to be tomorrow that you're going to have to come to terms with yourself and say, let me go back and listen to what they were saying.
Right.
That's the power of the internet. You don't have to listen to it today. You know what I'm saying? You go back and be like, dang, this video was 5 years ago. And they was talking about that then. Let me hear what they're saying.
Right, right.
Yes.
That was one of the that would say is another good point about being our time on Debate Talk View and in other spaces is that when people were saying, "Well, there's no one talking about it," we were able to go here, take this link, take this link, take
Right,
this.
right,
He had a whole catalog of someone absolutely was talking about it. So Debate Talk for You was another platform where we could catalog all of that work. So that no one could ever say that there was no concern for the people. We had critics saying, not the community would receive criticism saying, well, you don't come for the people who want to do polygyny. And we're like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no discussion about the positive or the negative or the whatever about these different marriage strategies. And then we're able to give up a dozen, half a dozen things on that. There's nothing about abuse. And then we're like, wow, okay. So here's another half a dozen, another dozen times that we talked about that. Oh, no one's talking about feminism or the effect of whatever in the relationships. And we're like, okay. I remember one time someone said, well, you guys don't talk about the challenges and the relationships in the community. And Amuna and I looked at each other and we're like, okay, it's literally called the relationship challenge. Like it's
this
literally called that.
Okay, so Sister Miranda, while the people are listening, what are some good confessions? Because I know it's a lot. It's probably like 60 plus episodes, and you may have missed some things along the way. So we're just gonna kind of bullet point, and then we're gonna get to the bad, the things that I saw that I wasn't always necessarily, because I have a lot of stuff going on. So I didn't always have the time to listen to everything because it was just a lot of talking on other segments and other shows. And so those are some of the things I'm going to lead into that I thought was not necessarily beneficial, but I couldn't really, try to dictate everything other people did in other spaces. But what are some of the good? I'll give you one of the confessions we got. In the very first episode, we got a confession from Brother Awar. Are y'all ready for this?
Uh-huh.
That laying with the woman does not
That's
make her
right.
your wife. Do you remember that one?
Yes, 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 yes. It was a hard earned one, but we
Oh
got it.
yeah, we fought.
It was Well, you already know my favorite one was it is the ego, it's not the ego. Like that was my favorite when we were investigating the idea that a woman must call her husband Lord. Should a
Right.
woman call your husband Lord? And we got like a lot of pushback because there's so much hanging on that concept that the man should be addressed as Lord, that he should be viewed as Lord. And we had some pretty staunch opposition, a lot of backlash for that, even to the extent that it became a separate conversation, took a life of its
No,
own.
no, Maya, call it what it was. I was called out.
Yeah, you got called to the carpet,
I
even
got a
after
phone call
having.
like a Muna. I want to talk to you. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of why the situation, this recent situation with Josh and ABT is different, is because when it was really extreme in other spaces, and there really men felt like, you know what, now you're stepping on my toes. I would get a phone call, or I would get an inbox to say, hey, Sister Muna, such and such is feeling a kind of way. You want to talk to them? And my
Right.
response will always be what, Sister Mayana?
Absolutely. Let's have a
Absolutely.
conversation. Yeah.
No problem. So
Yeah.
this situation was totally different because none of that happened.
I
I
mean,
didn't get a phone call. I didn't get a text. It was just, for me personally, none of that happened. But I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting the audience. So I'm going to read a question, then or a statement, and then I'm going to come back as we transition to some of the bad,
okay.
I remember, this is Slapbox. I remember one episode y'all brought up some scriptures where men were known by their mother's name instead of their father. I wanted to mention that in a conversation, but I forgot where to find it. And that was Sister Minor. So I'm gonna give it to her. Sister Minor?
That sounds like one of the under the palm um discussions, probably, where we were talking about it might have been when we did the quiz. I'll go back and look for you, brother, and I'll give you the link to that conversation, because I remember there was a time when we were looking at a quick list of. I did a quiz. I think it was a quiz of maybe 5 or 6 questions, and things that people overlooked or didn't realize was happening in Scripture.
Right.
I think I definitely did an entire article kind of post about all of the times when the seed did not determine the lineage, because there was this conversation about only the men can create the identity, and culturally that's not the case. And I was able to find, what was it, 5 or 6 different places where the seed was not what determined the lineage at all. So what, it wasn't to say that we aren't a patrilineal culture, because we absolutely are. We are patrilocal, patrilineal, and patriarchal as a culture, and that's not being disputed at all. So I need to say that, because otherwise there'll be a whole new set of, what is Mayana talking about? I heard she was a feminist. No, that's not what. I absolutely agree with and acknowledge that our culture is patriarchal, and patrilineal. However, I also understand that that is a social construct. It is not a biological determinant, because we see exceptions. So because there are exceptions, we know that this is a social construct that we have agreed to as a culture, that we have written down and made a decision that we will be patrilineal. But this is not etched in stone. It is not because of biology. It's not because there's life in the testes and there's death in the womb, which I keep hearing. It's not that. Because there are so many instances where that gets unseated, where that gets contested, or where that deviates. So
All right.
if we have even one exception, it proves that it's not biological. And so we had that conversation. It was probably a parenthetical conversation, because I don't remember that being the theme of any of the under the
So
palm subjects, right?
So
So
what
it
we're
was
gonna do is, if you find that, Sister Mine, we just gonna put it under the in the box here. If you
definitely.
find that, and then so that you can refer to that, and if that's something that you would like to join us and speak about again, just let us know. I think that's more Sister Mayana's lane. She'll be digging in there and finding the gems. So definitely, if you want to have that discussion, we could continue. And as well, if you have discussion ideas that you kind of want us to go over, this is an open panel as well. So all you got to do is hit us up and let us know that you want to be on the panel. The men are welcome. We are under the palm, but the men are welcome. So just hit us up respectfully, and we could continue having the very important. There was one I got reached out to. I was telling Sister Mayana, but he was like, "Yo, I'll help you guys to continue to have these discussions if need be." And I thought that was a kind gesture to say that
Definitely.
what you were saying is important, and I needed to continue. And it was a male, and so
Yes.
thank you definitely for that.
I
Um,
want to thank him as well. I absolutely extend my gratitude for that as well, because to offer, I mean, we should be, full disclosure, he offered a full year paid on Block Talk on our
right,
behalf. I mean, he's not saying I'll donate $10. I hope y'all do
right,
something
right.
with that. Do what you can. Let's see what you go
Like work
for.
that out. Work that out. Let it stretch. Let it stretch.
No, I think that speaks volumes, not just for the work that Amuna and I have put in, but for the impact that the people are saying, we needed that. And it's so important to us that we don't want to see it go. So if we have to, and that's one of the things we talk about all the time, right? Amuna, that people say they want it, but then they're not willing to invest. This brother
Correct.
told us, I'm willing to invest. I'm willing to put this financial backing where my mouth is. I'm saying I want to see it, and I'll do my part to
To
make it
make it
happen.
happen. Right.
Right. That was
Right.
the original thing that we loved about South. So I was like, I'll make the way. Y'all just do your thing, and I'll protect you so you can do it. That brother offered that to us. Y'all go ahead and do your thing. I'll make sure it's a clean and safe path for you. So for that, yo, hallelujah, and we really, really appreciate
All
you.
praise be to the Most High.
Well,
We're gonna
praises.
we get to the bad. I know y'all probably like, yeah, yeah, yeah. The good feels all hot, woman. I need the bad and the ugly. Let's get down. Let's drink some tea. You know what I'm saying? Take a nightcap and get into this. We getting there. Don't be so pushy. All right. Amathia says it's more interesting when discourse is done. Amathia loves discourse, by the way, y'all.
By the
In a
way, yes.
round table format. However, it only works when people don't love their own voices and understand all glory and credit is to the Most High and not the
Right.
ones talking. Hallelujah for that. Because I think some people who only like either to gravitate towards the charisma of the person and not necessarily what they're saying, they don't only. It's like I was reading a book recently, the autobiography of Anne Moody, and her mother was trying to get her to go to a church. And the way in which she got her, this was in the 60s, the way in which she got her to go to the church is by saying, Pastor such and such is going to be there. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's like for this personality, for this person is why I want to come, not necessarily the truth. And so when they get there, the regular pastor was there. And can you understand the young girl was upset? Like, I
Mm.
thought you said Pastor such and such. So this is kind of who we are, unfortunately, as a people, that we have itching ears for who makes us feel good or who makes us laugh or who entertains us, as opposed to where the truth is coming from. And for some, that may have been a fault of mine or something that they applauded me for, was what they would say me letting other people speak. You know what I'm saying? Even if it took them a little bit longer to get out what they had to say. And I think that's very valuable, as what Brother Amatia is saying, to having discourse. And that shows a respect or a lack thereof if the individual is not willing, like we experienced the bad portion of what we experienced, if they're not willing to let others speak, and the only person being heard in the room is them.
Can I, you know, I want to add something because I think it's valuable for the people to know who Amathia is. Now, Amathia would be considered messianic. And Amathia and I have known each other for going on 30 years. And Amathia has always been very vocal. He's always been very firm. And he and I have always had, we're able to maintain our sibling relationship for decades. And so this idea that we don't have respectful, sustainable relationships with other people, or that we are just hateful and malicious toward messianics, it doesn't bear out in reality. It doesn't bear out. It's these conversations that we see happening and playing out on the internet. That's not real life. A mafia lives blocks away from me. That's real life. You know what I'm saying? A mafia and other brothers were there for my baby shower. That's real life. A mafia comes to my house and for dinner we share whatever. That's real life. So, and for him to come in and have this contribution to the conversation, that's real life. So if you want to know who we are, all you have to do is listen to the people who said I've spoken to Amuna in real life, or the people that say who show up every time we come on to say I know that Mayana in real life. The one who says when like Sister Esther called in and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about because when I was sick, Amuna was the only one who reached out to me. That's real life. The things that are done for the views and done for entertainment, that's not real. That's not real
And
life.
and I think that that's what's going on here. We have the virtual world, and then we have who the person really is. And my standpoint is that we all are on this journey, and we're all learning and growing at different rates. And so, even though I do not hold the opinions any longer of many of the people I meet along the journey, that doesn't mean I get to kick their legs from under them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That doesn't mean I get to be a stumbling block. That means I get to model the behavior that I have come to understand is required of us, because we don't know at what point and what information is going to touch someone's mind so that the Most High will continue to aid them in their growth and development, because it's all about the desire of the person who has the information. And so, like Sister Maya said, when you hear people saying things, you're like, well, who are they talking about? You understand what I'm saying? But I have, and I'm gonna get to a little bit of the bad now, because I know y'all been waiting. Y'all like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? Honey bunches of oats. That sounds great. You feel me? But I need the bad, okay? And some of what I've experienced that I would say bad, but it was troubling, is that it wasn't mutual. This respect, this thought process is not mutual. On one side, I've experienced more of a pushing and an imposing, than I was actually willing to do to others. And we can only model the behavior that we would like for someone to reciprocate, but we cannot force others to reciprocate. And so in this facilitating many of these discussions, there had to be a lot of taking of high roads. There
Right.
had to be a lot of for lack of a better word, ignoring certain things. You know what I'm saying? Choosing to look at the better side of certain things instead of taking up offense. Right? There are many opportunities and spaces where one could be easily offended, but if you understand that we're facilitating a discussion where people have different views, then you would have to understand that, you know what, I don't have to agree with you, but to a certain degree, I respect that you're willing to come to the table and share. And that was not always reciprocated. I'm gonna give it to Sister Mayana before I tell you how we get to the point where this is finally addressed in what was known as the Messianic divide. But Sister Mayana, your thoughts on the bad?
I would say that when we start to think about the bad, one of the things that I would say is those times when Sal either didn't or wasn't able to protect us. Because if I were to say that the good was when Sal was saying, "Okay, y'all go ahead and do your things. I'll block certain things." Sometimes things got passed, and I won't say they were always deliberate or that they were deliberate at all. But for example, um, some things couldn't be helped. I would say that maybe like when there was a European who decided that he wasn't satisfied with being part of the round table. He didn't like that he wasn't allowed to misinform the people every time he said something that wasn't correct. I gave him the scripture that proved he wasn't right. So this particular European was extremely upset about that and told Sal that he wanted to talk to me in the lion's den. So instead of saying we don't put our women in the lion's den, and that has never been done before, and I'm not gonna let you at my sister's, it was, hey Mayana, this dude wants to get at you. What do you say? Right? So, me being me, I was like, I'm with it. Like don't threaten me with a good time. you know. So we wound up in the lion's den. And it was very interesting to hear it said the other night that, oh, these women aren't really about that life. They have never even been in the lion's den. And I guess doubly interesting for the producer to allow such a blatant mistruth to be forwarded, um, just so that this guy could attack us. I mean, it's like that's not even true. It was a dagger that had a very dull blade for anyone who actually knew what was going on. And so, I mean, just looking at that same example, because this was something that was controversial, it had a very high viewership. And I say it to say this, that it's not, because this is what I'm proving here is that it's not that it was me, it was that it was controversial. Because when I said earlier, when we have all of these other conversations that have to do with introspection, that have to do with doing some work on the inside, those things are uncomfortable. People don't want to do it. As certain people would assert, oh, people just don't want to see you, that's why your numbers are low. It's obviously not the case, because once I'm willing to step out of this space of healing and building and go into this more familiar space of controversy and combat, all the numbers jump up again. So what that shows us is not that people care about who's doing it, they care about where the strife is, where the contention is. Contention gets the numbers, not the people. No one cares. They don't even care. The actors can change in and out, in and out, as long as the contention is there. They're not coming for anything else. It doesn't matter who comes with good information. We had on Debate Talk for You, for example, a brother who does positive things, who tries to have positive conversations. We have like this whole freshman team of people that came in on Debate Talk for You, and they have a lot of really good programs that are new on Debate Talk for You. And we'll notice that all the programs, that every time there's some kind of positive information being done, the numbers are low. It's not because they're women, because he's obviously a male, but because the subject isn't controversial. People are
Right.
not people are not coming in for content. They're coming in for controversy. Controversy is what gives you viewership. That's what that is. And I think that needs to be understood. And I think that I would argue, or I would submit, that that's bad. That's
Right.
one of the bad aspects of what we were going through over at Debate Talk for You.
And anywhere, I would say I'm not new to the internet, not new to YouTube. And anywhere, for the most part on YouTube, it's either that the path is well known, so it's something that already is established in the wider community that people will be looking for. But if you are a YouTuber who was starting from the very bottom, um, if you, for the most part, if you start doing controversial things or doing wild and crazy things, you're going to get audience because people, this is why reality TV, this is why most TV shows are unscripted today. And it's just lightly scripted with reality TV highlighting the controversy and the drama because for some strange reason this is what the people want to see. And so it is that we have brought this appetite, because that's what it is, an appetite for controversy, strife, and contention over into the realm of truth seeking. We have many platforms, so-called conscious platforms on YouTube, that when there's some kind of beef going on or some rap beef going on, that is, like you said, highly viewed. But it's also a space where those who are in control of the boards, those who are behind the scenes, are exploiting. This is a weakness within the people that we are exploiting, that people are exploiting for views.
Right.
So somebody may misconstrue this as being that you're popular. No, you know what I'm saying? You may be popular, but it's for the wrong reasons. And so if popularity is not the objective, then you want quality views, right? You don't want, it's like you want quality emails. I can say, ooh, look at me, I get 1,000 emails a day, but all of them are spam. You know what I'm saying? And you spend like 50 minutes over there, like click, click, trying to erase all your spam, or you get one or two emails that actually have some validity. And that's kind of like the viewership, something that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about the bad. Another one of the bad is an illustration that we're seeing here. It says, and I'm going to read some of the comments now, because here's another bad that I experienced, is the way in which we react to criticism. We are, for the most part, not all, but I have experienced some of the hypersensitivity to critique. And if we are not able to be reproved or be able to take a look at ourselves and say, you know what, I could have did that better. You know what, I kind of OD right here. If we're not able to do that, then we are vulnerable. Okay. And so this also leads into what the last experience that we had, because up until this time, we were in a public space, and we still are, where people can sit comfortably behind their computers or wherever they are and critique you, everything about you. And what happened in this last particular situation is all the things that you never heard that people had on their hearts and minds, they spewed it onto you in a context where now they're upset enough to do so. Do you understand? Instead of coming to you and saying, hey, you know, such and such and such. But I'll get more into that. But before I do, let me go to this board here. I want to thank everybody for just joining us. We're talking post-debate talk for you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You are under the palm. And we see Slapbox says, I agree. Too many debates are treated like sports. Neither side is open to possibly being wrong or learning from the other. They want to win at all costs, even if it means name calling and ignoring good. And again, that would be bad. This is something that I have seen in times past, as you're saying, at which point it's not about edification, it's about the ego.
Right.
It is the ego, it's not the ego, right? Amatia comes back and says, and as Slapbox said, Amatia has been on the show a number of times. So this erroneous thought that, you know, you hate Messianics, quote unquote Messianics, and you don't want to see any good come of them. Like, this is, I don't know where that came from, but we'll continue. Amatia says, when people get together to talk in that space, it should be done with the expectation to dialogue with people who disagree with you. But that, you know, for some reason, if we are not surrounded by everybody who agrees with us, the first person who doesn't necessarily agree with us becomes our enemy. And then that scripture of, or that the New Testament saying of Paul, who says, have I become your enemy because I've told you the truth?
That's right.
Right? And then some people say, well, you can't say that. You know, you don't subscribe. Truth is truth wherever you find it. You know what I'm saying? And so if that statement stands, because most times we become enemies to one another because we have to be truthful with each other. That's something that we can definitely look at as a community and acknowledge if it's true or if it's not, and how we can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Okay, I'll say the student of Christ comes and says all about beating up Sal and his image. Once again, this is how the story is spun. And again, student of Christ, if you want to come on this side, if you want to let your voice be heard, just let me know. I'll shoot you the link and you can let your voice be heard. I promise you, I won't mute you. I won't mute you. So under the palm, I asked him to join the discussion if he heard the good. So sometimes we hear the good, we hear all the good, and we choose to ignore the good, right? We
Right.
hear the good, but we choose to ignore the good. It's kind of like the stats that we're talking about. You hear the good conversations, but it doesn't excite us enough. It doesn't titillate us enough. You feel
Right.
me? And so we choose to ignore those so that we can get to where, you know how somebody's addicted to being angry?
Mm-hmm.
So you just want something that makes you mad. You're looking around for something like, I'm waiting because I know something about to make me mad, and I'm just waiting for that thing to make me mad.
Right.
That means there's something going on with us as the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so student of Christ says, yes, I heard the good, and we are going to hear the bad and the ugly, which will I can assume will be more negative. So I would have to ask student of Christ, was the good negative or was the good good? I'll ask you that. No one has a problem with critiquing, but critique all who do wrong, not just certain people. And once again, this conversation, and I'm going to hear from Sister Mayana. Um, this conversation came up before. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why the people who are saying it are not doing their due diligence. I don't know why. That
Right.
there's this erroneous thought floating around in the blogosphere that the only people who are being critiqued are Messianics. This cannot be further from
The
the
truth.
truth. I don't know where you're getting this from. Or if a simple stroke on Google or YouTube would have yielded you some information for you to be able to say, you know what, let me not say this.
Right.
When there was a woman in our community who was who was bleeding into the Hebrew community, some what was it, Mayana, 2, 3 years ago?
Yeah. 3 years ago.
3 years ago, her name was she started the wife school. Her name was Rokisha Cutno. For those
Right.
who've been around long enough would remember, we did a whole like 2, 3 months investigation into her doctrine
Yeah.
and proceeded to alert the community and lost many people along the way who were upset with us because we took the time to investigate something that could possibly be problematic. Not only did we do that, we tried to facilitate discussions with her, but she declined.
Right.
So this is not just about talking about people and only one set of people. You can look up now that this same woman that we tried to warn the community about, who by the way, who was not a Hebrew, this
Right.
same woman is now under federal investigation.
Right.
And there is a whole website and lawyers on the case and not GoFundMe's. And what do they call that little thing, Mayana? Where they have the petition? What's the
Oh.
petition called? Hmm?
Oh. Yeah. I forget
The,
what. But
the
that's what
petition
they had to
website.
go
Y'all
and
know
sign
what the
the
petition
petition.
website is. There's a whole petition with hundreds of signatures because they found out that the woman was a fraud. I can show you right now. I'm gonna give the mic to Mayana while I show you right now. What's your name again? Because I'm all about education. Okay, the student of Christ, stand still while I get you an article that I wrote many years ago to warn the community about what Rokisha was doing in the community. So stand by, Mayana. I'll give you the mic as you continue to share your thoughts.
Sure. I mean, even if while you do that, we go back to this conversation, early in the conversation, someone gave a link to Amuna in her inbox to assert or to imply that the abuse that was given to us the other night on Debate Talk for You by Josh was well earned, and it was an example of domestic discipline, and proceeded to share an entire what he thought was a Bible study about it, as if he was newly informing us of this concept, only to find that Amuna and I had already addressed the idea of domestic discipline 2 years ago. I think there's an entire video on Solonomics on that same topic. And again, domestic discipline is not a messianic or non-messianic or Torah only subject. It's a general subject, and we address it. We address all things that are problematic because we address material. We address information. We don't address individuals. We don't address people because we consider everyone our brothers and our sisters. The idea is for us all to get to the kingdom. The idea is for us to all be under the Creator. That's what we're about. We're about nation building. We're not about tearing anyone down. But if there's a false doctrine, or if there's an error in interpretation, or there's something that we should review together, we do that. And it's always about the material, and it's never about the individual. And so I think that that is clearly the difference between what Amuna and I do and what others expect or are used to. The cat fighting, the personal digs, the your mama this. We don't do that. We don't, and we
And
didn't do it in our review. And I want to, and I think you're back, Imuna.
now I'm back. I'm just dropping the links in the box so that we can be educated about, and Deep Mind Unraveling says, yes, I remember, so that we can be educated about what's going on. When it comes to Hebrews, how many have you put on blast? The thing is this. Again, see, this is what I said about the other night about moving the goalposts. First, we make a false assertion. You don't do this only but to this particular group. And then when that point is disproved, then we jump over here to put it somewhere else.
Okay, wait, how about this? Let me answer that question. When Josh was asked if we came for him as a person, when he was asked directly, did we insult him? He said no.
No,
So
correct.
if you want to know how many individual Hebrews we've come for, we're still at zero, including Josh. We don't go for, again, we don't go for individuals. We look at information. We're researchers. We're Hebrews. We're about this life and we're about this Torah. So we're not looking to destroy people. That's not what we do. If that's something that the men are doing or certain individuals are interested in, that has nothing to do with us. Not only are we not going for Hebrews that are Torah, we're not going for Hebrews that are Messianic either. We're not going for Hebrews. That's our family. How
Correct.
we have an entire show called the Relationship Challenge. That's because we're trying to keep families together. We're trying to keep relationships intact. So it's against our mission to go against Hebrews. The reason I don't think people are paying attention, the reason Amuna and I were brought on the show was because there was already too many people coming for each other, and he wanted something different. He wanted us to not come for individuals. So we didn't. Even in the peer review, we didn't. That's an assumption that comes out of nowhere. We literally did not attack a single Hebrew in that discussion, because that was part of the, wasn't that the first part
Okay.
of the two-part series, was don't come for?
Yes, hold on
Okay.
for me 1 second. This is the thing about, thank you so much, Sister Mina. This is the thing about and this is what I talk about on my channel, Solonomics, all the time. So shout out to everybody who tunes into Solonomics. Because this is one side of the conversation, and then there's the other side of the conversation. Whatever we concentrate on in our mind, whatever thoughts we regurgitate, is how we're going to see and hear the situation. So this is not about convincing anyone. In the same way, it wasn't about convincing anyone during the peer review. This is about giving the facts, or showing the research that one has come across. So it's okay if you think it's denial. What I would assure you to do, student of Christ, is to do the homework, right? Do the homework, because no matter what someone says, you're going to already have your conclusion, but it is wise to do diligent inquiry. So what is happening tonight is that you are making false assertions again. Okay, because I saw you in the comment section. You're most welcome to be here. But what I would ask is that you give the same respect that someone is giving to you. So I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm saying that you have to do your homework, because Josh, as well as you and others who support him, did not do their homework and are making false assumptions. Okay, even on the platform, what we're saying is the things that overall were, when I was asked, if Mayana could tell you, about a season ago, and Sal was asking, we did recap, so where do you think you should go? One of the things that I said to him is that too much talking is going to, it's kind of going to, not destabilize, but it's kind of going to have the people in limbo, that there needs to be some type of plan of action, if Mayana could remember me saying that. There needs to be some reaching out to the community that you're in, because after you've had so many debates, after you've done so many things, now it's time to reach out to those who are in and around you and put the knowledge into action. Do you remember that conversation, Sister Maya?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And so the thought was that we were not only just looking to build a quote online platform. I even gave suggestions because Mayana is in New York, Sal is in New York, and many Hebrews are in New York to begin to make these connections. Sal personally didn't make those connections, but Mayana actually did. She began to step out into the community, and you can share a little bit about them, that some of the good that has kind of spiraled from that space. Mayana, feel free to share.
Oh, well, for sure. Because we decided to move out the ministry and the work outside of just these virtual spaces and these written spaces, because we were writing articles and putting up posts and the like, that I did come into the physical trenches here in Brooklyn. And now we have a sisterhood called Hanashim, and there are growing numbers of women who meet twice a month, sometimes once a month, sometimes twice a month, and we gather together as sisters. We have gone out into the community and had workshops with other Knessets, which was, we had our first workshop, and that workshop had, for the first time ever, from what I under, why it was considered such a success, is that for the first time ever, women from four separate types of Knesset congregations and organizations were in the same room at the same time having a discussion about the best ways to improve the community, the best ways to improve our relationship as Israelites, the best way to interact with the wider melanated community. And we were all very it was a room of, I want to say, there was so much love in that room, and there's always this idea that women don't get along and women can't have conversations, and there's always going to be this cattiness about us. And these women represented four different groups, and were able to congregate together, to sing together, to plan together, to grow together. So it was super amazing. Since then, we have also gone out into other interfaith spaces to give people who have never heard about Israelites an idea about who we are in a very positive way, or for those who have heard about Israelites but have a very negative opinion of us, we were able to go into these spaces and give them a different frame of reference, so that now when they think of Israelites, they don't think of only the people that they are afraid of on street corners, but the women that they had this really insightful, very calm, very creative conversation with. And they're like, okay, so you're not, this vicious group of people, because I know somebody that's an Israelite. It's not only those people in the street. So we have all of these people having a different frame of reference. We stepped out of our comfort zone and engaged clergy members. We engaged community leaders. We went into district council offices. I met with Congress people and senators, and did these kinds of work. So this idea, and I didn't do it as, oh, I'm the Torah only, Mayana. Good to meet you. I said that I'm from the Israelite community, so I didn't just go out there and rep for Torah. I don't expect for people to see me. I know for a fact that when people see me and I say that I'm an Israelite, I bring everybody with me.
So thank you so much for that, Sister Mayana. And I'm glad that you're here, student of Christ, and I'm glad that you're talking. Again, this is how we get information and are able to address things and concerns that the listening audience may have. So definitely, thank you for coming. Um, I see that you're saying that when you two first came to Debate Talk for You, it was a good thing. And as time progressed, all who were aware saw the change. I'm not the only one. Various people who follow the show. I would like for you to share some more of that, because that's kind of vague. I kind of want an understanding of where you're going with how the change was. What was the change? Was there a particular show that you heard something that kind of changed your spirit or your perception of what was going on? That's very important to take a look at, because I would say on the other side, remember, is your side, my side, and the truth. Is the person who's looking on and processing what they're seeing, and the person who's experiencing what they're seeing, right? And for myself, speaking for myself, when I came to the table having the discussion, it wasn't my first time in the host seat. Let's just say that. Let's just go ahead and dispel that myth. All right. It wasn't my, and I'm not trying to say that to be funny, but there's some stuff that's swirling, and I'm like, what in the world? That was not my first time in the whole seat. I was actually frequently on another show concurrently. So as I was doing Debate Talk for You, I was also on another show that spoke to the wider melanated community. Okay. So I don't just, that goes to show you that, as Sister Mine is saying, in whatever space we go into, we represent not Israel only, we represent the true and living power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so however we model our behavior, whatever we're experiencing, we have to learn to, as the Proverbs say, master our spirit. Now, being in the whole seat and as a mediator, you're still a person. Okay. And before the public, you have to learn to master yourself while trying to facilitate a discussion where you didn't always agree with. And in some spaces, I would interject. In other spaces, I would just have to take the back seat as I listen to things that I clearly didn't agree with. But ultimately, my allegiance is to truth.
Right.
And this is what maybe may have been lost in translation. Ultimately, my allegiance has been, always will be, and will continue to be truth. You understand? Because that's the only thing that I can stand upon. And so after many series of being like these, what others would perceive, just in the same way, if someone comes along with this Messianic and non-Messianic discussion, if somebody comes along and does what people considers perceivably digs at you, daggers, right? What we have experienced, what I have experienced on the platform is that when one person is throwing the dagger and another person doesn't react, the thought process is, well, I'll just keep throwing daggers. But on the other side, there's a hypersensitivity to anything that could be perceived as a dagger. So this elephant has been and always will be in the room. Okay, so we're gonna get to the bad and how it progressively, in my estimation, got ugly for the sake of time. What time is it? For the sake of time, we're not gonna keep y'all. We at the 9 o'clock hour for those who just joined us. This is post debate talk for you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully when we translate this story, we just bring the whole story and not just portions of the story. We spent like a whole hour talking about all of the things that was beneficial and actually the feedback from the listening audience, and some of which you are here who benefited from the discussion. Okay. When it could no longer be ignored as a host, I appealed to Shao. And when asked what it is that I wanted to discuss next, I spoke to Sister Mayana as well as Brother Sal and said, I would like to discuss this Messianic divide. We had spoken about if two can agree. We have spoken about is birth control unlawful. We've spoken about if the dude don't have no job, should he be entitled to wives? We've spoken about did the Messiah, listen to this title, did the Messiah do away with divorce? Okay? We've spoken about all of these situations, polygyny, multiple times. Now, what I realized, and I had the right within this position that I was in to say, I have heard 30, 40 plus discussions. And one of the issues that I see keep on recurring is the way, what side of the book the individual falls on. If the individual falls on one side of the book, they're going to look at marriage and divorce in one way. If the individual falls on the other side of the book, they look at marriage and divorce in the other way. So I collected all of that. What would you call that, Sister Maya?
Data.
Data, right? All of that market research, personal, not as a spectator, but as somebody who personally engaged and facilitated these discussions and said, now we have earned the right, the respect and trust to enter into this very sensitive area. And if you listen back to the tape, listen back carefully to the tape, we did not attack. It was not a debate, right? It was a discussion. But again, because this area is the area that many, no matter what you do or how you approach it, many are going to be offended. And for those who did see the video I did on here on Facebook, Messianic Fragility, even in that video, I'm not attacking. I really just wanted to understand, what is this fragility that I am experiencing?
I mean,
Why is it that anything I say, I'm gonna give it to you, Sister Mana. Why is it that anything is that's said around this space gets misconstrued. For most, not all, because Amati is in the house, and I could ask Amati any question and he'll answer. But go ahead, Sister Man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amatia is the best. Like Amatia, we say Amatia, we got a question. He'll be like, I got an answer. I love Amatia. Like
Always, always.
always,
Amati
every
let
time
you
we go
ask
to
a question.
Amatia, every time we go to Amatia, say Amatia, we got a question. He goes, I got an answer. Love,
Correct.
you know what, Amatia? Shout out to Amatia for that, for always being, the sounding board and to
Hey,
be the calm one and never, giving us a hard time and just being honest and open and allowing us to explore questions that we have with him. So, told us for that. But just before, I didn't want you to go too far from that first episode because it's either the first or the second episode. One of the, I don't know if it's a compliment or a criticism that we got, excuse me, was, well, I don't know what was the person, I guess because when they hear this kind of conversation or this type of topic, there's an expectation. And the person was like, I don't know what to make of this. If all you were trying to do was have a respectful conversation, well, I guess you did that.
correct.
Like we were criticized almost, or we
So we
somehow
were
disappointed.
criticized. Yeah, we was given a backhanded compliment for being respectful in the discussion because people wanted to see a cat fight.
Right.
And when they didn't get the cat fight, you know, it was
Somehow
like,
we
what are
managed
we doing here?
Right. Somehow we managed to disappoint the audience because we remained respectful. That we stayed true to form and said we're not here to fight. We're not here to argue. We're here to inquire. We're here to search, to seek the matter out, to do diligent inquiry, to invite the people to the conversation. The people we had a question for, we had them representing their position. We didn't tell them what
Correct.
they thought. We didn't guess. We didn't accuse. We didn't throw false accusations. We say, tell us, okay, this is the question. How do you understand this subject? And we listened to them.
Correct.
And apparently that's not what,
You don't do that either. This is what I'm saying. It's catch 22. We see Slapbox said, I saw a change in Mayana. She definitely matured. Let's talk a little bit about that. That's good. I don't want to kind of pass by that because a lot of people don't know that this was a growing experience for everyone. And anything that you're involved in, if you don't grow and learn, then you kind of wasted your experience. Sometimes we just want to sit back and think it's just a time waster or something that we put in a spot so that we can pass the time. But we are on our own individual journeys here. So Slapbox was always somebody who said that you grew, and I have told you that behind the scenes. What are your thoughts on that, Sister Man?
No, Ken, because I remember when he first wrote to us, he was like, I would like to be like you. I would really I like the way you handle this. And I said to him, I said, it wasn't always like that. So he was like, really? And that's when Slapbox went back. I said, go back and look. Like that was a process. That took me a minute. So he went back and looked, and that's when he came back and was like, wow, sis, so for real. Like, so it's something that I grew under the public eye. Like I didn't come up, they got, everyone got to watch me. It's on
Right.
record. So if you caught me in season 3, then you're like, wow, Mayana really got it together. So, and I could have taken that. I could have been like, that's right, I'm the best. I'm the best. Thank you very much. But I didn't. I said, you know what? It wasn't always like that. And I invited him to go back and see me
Yeah.
when I was still,
Yeah, y'all check
I was
that
still
first
raw.
episode. Check that first episode. It was a little bit of fireworks, y'all. It was a little bit of 4th of July.
Yeah,
Mayana and a war boy, they woo. That
but
first episode was wacky. But
yeah,
nonetheless, we
especially
pushed
if you
through.
go back. If you go back and listen to me in a war, go at it in episode 1, then you can really appreciate him calling in the other day
Yes.
and still
Yes.
say, I got mad love
That's
for
my
that.
sister. Yeah.
That's my sister. For him to still, all these years later to be like, that's my sister and I love her. I'm
Right.
sorry this is happening. That tells you a lot about um what the relationship but behind the scenes and as we develop things with Awa. That it has never been personal. And we
No.
understood that, right? It's
Even
never been.
even when a war said he don't listen to nothing Sister Mayana said.
That was a classic. I don't agree with nothing Bayana say.
I say, oh, what do you think about what Sister Mayana said? Or what said? I'll never listen to nothing Sister Mayana said. I mean, that's to show you that when you're in this space, the reason why I try to inject humor is to lighten the mood so that we don't take ourselves so seriously, so that we do look towards the Most High. It says, lean not on your own understanding. This is
Right.
where I see a lot of contention happening in the realm of the ego because somebody stayed up late at night hovering over their Strong's Concordance and they are certain that this is the interpretation, they're taking themselves too seriously. You feel me? The
Mhm.
prophets had to do the ill, you know what I'm saying, 40-day fast and get the word from the Most High, but we can go to the Strong's Concordance and yeah, we got
We
it.
got it all. Yeah, yeah.
But the Proverbs say, the wisdom says, lean not on your own understanding. In
Right.
all your ways acknowledge the Most High, and what? He will make your path straight. And
That's
so
right.
this is for me why discussion is necessary, because when we go into this space, we'll find that a lot of us are leaning on the limited access to information that we have. And we are so full of ourselves, for lack of a better word, so full of pride that we are not able to say, you know what? Let me hear what you got to say,
Right.
right? And that let's walk together and let's discover this together and let's inquire of the Most High together on this matter. Everybody shows up at the table drawing lines in the sand, and they just woke up 2 days ago.
Right.
Like, you woke up, what are you doing? Like, you know the way, really? But I'm gonna read some stuff in the comment section here for those who just joined us. Thank you for joining us. If you missed the good, it's okay. You can go ahead and press the rewind and get there. Um, we have we have Sister Sheikah Tiva saying disagreement is not attack, and I would have to agree that disagreement is not an attack unless that disagreement is an attack. You know, unless the person is attacking because they disagree, which is two different things. I can disagree with an individual and not attack them, or I can attack them because I disagree with them, right? And so we really kind of have to be aware of how much we feel we have the right to attack people because they don't agree with us. Um, Amante says, I can testify to that. They remain common situations. I doubt I would have. If anything, people can learn by taking a page out of their book. And Slapbox said, I would have snapped on some of them dudes. I mean, we've had, I mean, I don't know what y'all listen to. Like, we've had some wild times and actually had people look up to, because what happens is in this culture, the feminine voice is quieted for many reasons. She's too emotional. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She doesn't have the right to speak. And so we had to work, understand where we enter. A male, not uninvited, we was invited, but it's a masculine, male dominated arena.
Right.
Okay. And in this male dominated arena, you cannot be the loud, angry, easily dismissible, belligerent female that someone can say, blah, blah, blah. So not only do you have to be informed, you have to know how to govern yourself.
Right.
And for 3 years, this is one of the things that had me doing the scratching my head. If for 3 years, for the most part, again, as we've heard, not perfect, because there's some episodes you want to be like, I'm gonna put myself on mute. But for 3 years, you have been able to keep your part and contribution to the platform on intact. How is it? And why is it that after 3.5 episodes, we come to this point? One has to use critical thinking. There's either someone who has been holding themselves back. You have to look at the environment that the persons were in and decide on whose side was withholding, who was holding themselves back, who was governing themselves, and who decided, you know what, I've done my part. I'm good now. This is something to consider when you're looking at the entire situation. And look, if y'all don't know what we're talking about, you're gonna have a lot of homework to do. So don't even stress it. Just you know what I mean, just continue to rock with it. We're gonna boogie on down, and then I'm gonna give it to, again. If you want to come on the other side of this discussion and you have something to say, feel free to let me know. Um when you okay, we already read that. I'm calling as I and many others see it. Again, it will help us to get like details, so that it's not just this ambiguous, you know, when you say somebody's guilty of something, then the next thing is to do to be point out the points on which this person is guilty.
Right.
Um, okay, Mayana has improved. Iron sharpen iron. Thank you, Sister Sheikah. Constructive criticism, we spoke a bit about that. And now, see, student of Christ, this is what we're talking about. So now we can't have a balanced conversation. If you are able to say what you saw, although you didn't specify, asking for a little bit of facts, like a little bit of receipts, you know what I'm saying? But even though you didn't do that, you may be gathering your receipts. Now you want to take up Myrtle Nation, you want to step to her because she's not in agreement with you. So now you're making assertion about her character. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. Myrtle Nation, in your eyes, these two can do no wrong. How did you conclude that? What is the basis of these statements you're making? Anywho, these are some of the things that I want to just point out as we're having this real life conversation. Amathia says you guys didn't argue and act, and you acted like ladies. How dare you? Amathia got jokes. We have much love for you too. That's Sister Tafada in the house. Shout out to Sister Tafada in the house. Um, and we have Award calling in was definitely dope. I got hype hearing his voice. Me too. I really did. If you hear me, I was kind of like, eh. And I heard Award. I was like, I know that voice. I
Yes.
also appreciated Ashanti's words. I can tell she was bothered by the situation. I also haven't heard from Malaka in a minute. You know, and I'm gonna give it to Mayana to say her thoughts. A lot of people are bothered. You know, I got a lot of response that I didn't really expect, because I guess you know how you either take something for granted or you always wanted to say but you never really did. And so there was a lot of people who I guess benefited, but I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So when we said that we would be having the follow-up discussion on this platform, I didn't expect it to go for the 3 full hours. But being true to form, I said, Sal, let everybody say their piece. And it really just showed how much people were affected by the work we were doing. And all I could say to that is all praise be to the Most High. So,
Hallelujah.
hallelujah. I'm gonna give it to Sister Mayana to share her thoughts on what Sheikah has said, on what Brother Slapbox has said. I call him Brother Slapbox before he changed his name. That was his name, y'all. And student of Christ is saying currently. So go ahead, Sister Mayana.
I think to brother, um, Yah in Christ, what I would like to say to you, brother, is I understand your frustration. And I can see how if someone that you respect feels as if they have been disrespected, that you would want to see some kind of um, restoration for that person. I completely understand that. But what I would ask for you to do is that other than taking the fact that we are Tanakh only, and that we um, had the audacity to take up a challenge that maybe you don't feel we should have, for you to honestly assess how we did it. If the brother said, no, you did not insult me, the only thing you did was mention my name. For you to, if you don't believe us, to believe him when he says all we did wrong was mention his name. If you want us to go, and we open this up because we understand that we're being criticized, and we understand there are people that are unhappy with some of the work that we did, and we're here because we want to hear it. We're not trying to shut you down. We're not going to tell you that your position is not valid. We want to understand how you arrived there. So I heard you say earlier, I heard it read earlier, that you said that there was a change, that what we did in the beginning you saw value in, but somewhere along the line you feel as if we went off the path. I would love to hear from you what episode you think maybe best modeled when we started to go off track for you, so that we can go back and look at that. Because if you have a valid point, we're not above hearing about it. And maybe you don't have that impression, but I'm telling you on record that if you say to me, you know, Mayana, on this episode, you guys went into this topic, and it was very clear to me that you had switched off and went to a different direction, please point it out for me so that we can bethink ourselves. That's one of the things that Muna and I do when we try to open these conversations, is so that we can bethink ourselves and others can bethink themselves, more than trying to dagger or point out, ways to bring down others. So I really just wanted to kind of say that to that brother.
Time marker, brother. Time marker. Give us a time marker, brother. I mean, that's a lot of episodes to go over. You feel me? Like, point me in the direction. Give me a time marker, something. But like I said, there definitely was a change in the times. Not sure if it's to the degree that is being said, but I definitely know internally when it got to a certain point, I'm like, respect has to be mutual. And I'm not sure if this is being done intentionally or unintentionally, but it's definitely something that we have to address. And so it was addressed for 3 episodes of the Messianic Divide. There's many things that happened during that time, and that was the lead up to what we are talking about, which is now the ugly. I just put an article link in the box where things just got ugly. y'all. We just, I know y'all probably waited like an hour and 24 minutes to get to when things got up. Things, as Sister Maya is speaking about the challenge. If you don't know, Sal was in the hospital for some time with a life-threatening condition with his heart. Um, the relationship, not the relationship challenge, the whole show, the whole debate talk for you was on an emergency hiatus. Before that hiatus, as Sister Mayan is saying, something that's unprecedented is the woman in the lion's den, right? And it's not that it couldn't be done. With intention, there were spaces where the masculine principle was there, and it wasn't the desire to, quote, usurp his authority. So if I showed up or Mayana showed up on some old read, then it would be a whole lot of other contentions about how these sisters over here trying to act like they, you know what I'm saying, set up on the block in the camp. So with intention, those areas were left for those masculine men who wanted to do that job. So it's not that as Mariana demonstrated with the fresh hour debate, it's not that it couldn't be done. It's that it didn't, there was not a desire, and it's on record that I really didn't desire to be in a very contentious, striving space. Because I personally don't see it has its place, but I don't see how for myself how it leads me to where ultimately I'm about and where I was trying to go. Okay. And so when the conversation came about being in the lion's den or on this trial, so to say, and the call was to bring this healing energy to the table into the discussion, and it was thought about. At first, it was rejected. See, people might be over there be like, yeah, as soon as they got the opportunity, they jump right on it. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. It was contested for a minute because I was trying to see what's the spirit behind this discussion. Mayana, am I saying true? Because you ain't got to agree with me. If I'm saying something crazy, just let me know.
No, we no, both we had several reasons to decline the offer. It was on the Shabbat. It was a space that we deliberately avoided weighing in on. And it wasn't until we were given a series of assurances that we would be able to secure the shalom of the conversation, that we would be allowed to have some say in de-escalating, not directing, but de-escalate. It was all, in fact, all of the assurances we were given were in the space of being able to de-escalate any of these things. So we were not put in to fire up or anything. If anything, we were doing what Josh called make it more boring. Josh called that boring. To not have that high level contention. We were going to add too much calm so that the conversation can happen. That overbearingness that happened in the first trial, we were going to remove that. And the other idea was that with the presence of a female on the team, it would balance out because the other team had brought in a woman. And so, since there was a woman on the other team, adding a woman to the Torah side added the balance. So you don't have a bunch of men, barreling down, and one of the women on the other one of the members on the other team is a woman. So we had balance now. If Amuna and I agreed to participate, there would be me as the moderator. I wasn't on any team. I would have been the moderator, and Amuna would have been a team member. And for the record, it was agreed to by both sides that I would be the moderator. It wasn't something that the Torah side came up with. It was because all of the members on the, or at least the captain on the other team, vouched for, and all of the people that were on the freshman team of Debate Talk for You were of the one mind that I was someone who was not biased. And I think that's an important point because at some point everybody understood and agreed that Mayana had no biases and that Mayana didn't lead one way or the other. So again, it's very, very strange to have that letter suddenly put on me that I'm walking around with this new scarlet letter of I'm anti this group of people, this group, and I just because it doesn't, it makes no sense to me. This is a group of people that I work with in real life. Like I work hand in hand with a ministry that is what you would call messianic, to do good in the community. Like, I work in interfaith spaces so that we can have peace, healing, understanding, and nation building. And so for that particular accusation to be leveled against me, it doesn't make any sense in the realms of reality because nothing in real life affirms it. So that was one thing that was just such a peculiar accusation that I don't know. I think I was probably the most offended by that because I get offended by inaccuracies, and I guess when we get to the ugly, I can talk about all of the other clearly false statements that were made, and I
Okay.
guess there, right? We're still at
Yeah,
just that.
we're almost there. We're not gonna keep y'all long. We're not gonna keep you long. The baby's is turning up in the back. It's still me. It's still nighttime. So we are at the 9:30 hour, I believe.
Okay.
For those who just joined us, I put some links in the box that they're there for your perusal. Again, this is not a bashing session. You have to be balanced in everything that you do, and you present the information and you kind of give clarity. And I think we owe this to give a bit of clarity in a non-contentious format for those who may have it. So if you do have any specific questions, feel free to put them in the box. And that we owe this because you gave us, 3 hours of, we gave you 3 years of our life, and you gave us 3 years of your life. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
tuned in and listened, you connected, you laughed, you thought, whatever it is that the show or the experiences made you feel, where there was a connection, even if you never read us in real life. And so if you do have a burning question that you need answered, I did try to do the most objective job that I could, just by recounting a lot of the way in which the conversation, she is funny, the way in which the conversation continued. But again, after that trial was canceled, and I was kind of like, you know how you're like, it's canceled. I could go in there and do my job, but even you can ask Sister Maya, I never wanted to, like, I'm coming to finish you. You know what I'm saying? Because that was never my intent. Now, don't get it twisted. If you look at the discussion, if the other brother is still in the room, the discussion that we had with Vocab Malone, that was a different Amuna, and that was a different Mayana. You understand what I'm saying? And that was many other people. We were on the panel with people who saw the things that he was doing in the community as something to address. And so we collectively addressed it. And that is also on record. So this thought that, you're only coming for me really just shows that you may not have been paying attention to what actually was going on. So the way things kind of got ugly, and I'm gonna come to the comment section, is in where, again, just in the same way that the Messianic divide eventually needed to be addressed, this statement, these assertions against a whole entire population, that was laid on the quote Torah only community, I found not only damaging but dangerous, right?
Mm.
And they said you took it personal. Well, I wasn't talking to you. It's dangerous when we see how we are represented or misrepresented, or only in the news, in media. If we don't take control of our narrative, and if we don't have internal checks and balances system, then we will have people who are within our space misrepresenting us, right? And so when you hear things like what was said, and you realize that this is not true, if you are in any space where you see Old Testament communities represented, they're not on the street corners, they're not yelling. A lot of them are not even on social media. You know what I'm saying? And so it was perplexing to me that this message was going out as if it was a challenge when it wasn't substantiated. You didn't tell us who you were talking about. It was just a very wide net that was cast to catch a very few. And so in that very presentation, and in the call or the desire to say, hey, and if I'm saying anything wrong, right, I need you to critique me. That was an invitation, being that we are a mainstay on the platform, and I am, and I'll clear that up later, but I am affectionately called the first lady, right? How then are you going to see something that's going on, and you're seeing it in its rawest form, and you say nothing? So the way in which we address that situation is the way in which we address all of the situations that has been addressed over the years with respect, with tact, and with decorum. But this is the first time that it wasn't received as such. This is the first time that it was received as, you know, I'm gonna bite you, quote
Yeah.
unquote. You know what I mean? Repeatedly, my bad, quote unquote. You know what I mean? And so that is where it got ugly. That is definitely where it got ugly. Uh,
If I could add to that,
Now go ahead.
just to kind of build on what you're saying, especially in the case of Mal one, when Darmok Riser decided that he wanted to come for the community, and I mean, he specific, unlike what Josh did, he specifically told us, "I'm not talking to you. This isn't about you. I'm talking to them. I don't know enough about Torah only people to be talking about you. I'm only talking to them. I don't know why you're coming for me." This is where we were specifically told this is not your business. Don't touch it. But Amuna and I said, if you come for our brothers, you come for all of us. You can't come for just the Messianics. That's our community. We're not going to let you come for Israelites. I don't care if you're not talking about us. And nobody said, why didn't Mayana and Amuna stay in the kitchen? Why were they not in their lane? Everybody was like, go sisters. Everybody had their flag going because they knew, right? They knew we were about the community. So when we defend the entire community, nobody has a problem with it. No one said that was a man's fight because at the time, he would not only was he not talking to Torah people, he was only talking to the men. Going in and out of debates, in and out the Lions Den, talking about the brothers all over the place, literally not talking to us. Specifically saying, I am not talking to Mayana and Imuna. And
But
Mayana and Imuna said, that's tough. It doesn't matter. We're not gonna let you talk to the brothers like that.
but just so that people not misunderstanding what's happening, it's not to say that the brothers are not capable of defending the community, but sometimes in that particular instance the brothers were so distracted
Right,
arguing amongst themselves that they didn't see that coming out the side of their eye was a danger.
right.
And even when we approached, to say, hey, pay attention,
Right.
somebody's coming around the corner, they still just went about their merry little way. And so,
Uh,
I'm saying? It's like, it's okay. And then now, years later, people are like, oh my goodness, this person is a problem. And we're like,
right.
we've been trying to tell you this person was a problem.
Amuna's making a good point because to be honest, the first thing we did is the first solution was not we're gonna talk to him. The first thing was every time a brother came to debate talk for you and we found out about it, we spoke to the brother and said, brother, could you kind of pay attention? We left the men to do it, but the men stopped the men refused to do it. We kept we kept putting it we kept leaving it to the men to see this thing. We alerted the men. We did not want to go into the conversation. We did not try to go into the conversation.
No,
We avoided the conversation for almost a year, or if not more than a year. And we just kept letting the brothers know, listen, he's doing this other thing on the back end. He's doing this other thing on the back end. And they're like, whatever, we want to fight.
right.
And we were like, it's not about fighting. This man is trying to do something more insidious on the back end. We can don't play with the neighbor's kids. He's bringing other things into the conversation that we were looking at because we were like really doing what we do. We were researching. We were checking things out. And we were putting it back in the brother's lap, but it was like, no. But, so I guess the point that I was making before was that was a space that the man specifically told us, I'm not talking to you. And we took it as if you're talking to our community, you're talking to us.
And
But when
and I wanted
but I just
thank
want
you
just
for
to
that.
clarify that that's not what happened with Josh. Not only because he didn't make it specific, but because we literally didn't take sides. Because one of the other contentions or one of the other statements that I saw repeatedly done is that we took hold of a dog's ears. The fact is, we didn't weigh in on whatever strife was happening on the back end. We didn't take sides. We didn't comment on the strife. We didn't comment on any of that. We stuck to the two verses and the mentioned verse that he spoke about. We stuck to the Tanakh challenge. We didn't weigh in on whatever debates they were having, whatever contention they had with specific people that we didn't know anything about. We didn't take any. I keep saying it because it's important. We didn't take sides. in order to
Correct.
say that we weighed in on strife. We didn't know that there was some underlining strife, and we didn't take sides, and we didn't weigh in. We only dealt with the verses he brought out and the criteria of the challenge he put on record. We couldn't read his mind. We didn't read the subtext. We didn't, and we could not comment on things we didn't know about.
And I want to say that's important as a community, and all of these misunderstandings that we seem to have is that I don't know if we're too busy or what, but it seems that more and more of us want to just hear two little portions and then make a decision and then take to Facebook or YouTube, whatever, and then and we're putting things out there that we haven't really processed. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the information that comes forward, it's through due diligence
Right.
so that you don't misspeak. And if you do misspeak, you immediately correct yourself because there's supposed to be some responsibility in disseminating information. And what we experienced on Friday was the lack thereof of responsibility in disseminating information. So much so when I called in before I was muted, I asked if he was aware of what slander and false witnesses. See, this is the stuff that we're talking to. This is where it gets ugly, where we're not even respecting the Torah on the Shabbat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It says, "Do not bear a grudge in your heart against your brother," but yet, or in this case, your sister. But yet, still, we get to find out that you always had a grudge that we know nothing about.
Right.
How does that work? We say that you're bearing false witness and you're slandering someone's name without any proof or evidence. How does that work on the Shabbat? So when
Right.
we talk about Torah and we argue and we grapple over chapter and verse and not realize it's something you're supposed to live, I'm not going to open up my mouth and say something or try to say this is what the brother is doing if I don't know that that's what he's doing. But I can say what he has done. And I can say, just like the brother who was here and he may be left, I'm not sure, that you're making these statements, these wild and crazy, you know what I'm saying, statements with no substantiation. If I said that we covered domestic discipline, there goes the link. If I said that I went back and did such and such, there goes the link. And this is
That's
why
right.
it kind of takes, I mean, I know it takes me a long time to come to a story because I be going back like, okay, so before you were born, you know what I'm saying? It's like, ask Mayana, we wanted to talk about something. She said, but you didn't research it. He's like, yeah, I ain't researching yet. Just give me about 2 more, 3 more weeks. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Because I get lost. I just enjoy the research just for the sake of researching
Yeah.
before I even sit down to even open my mouth. If you hear me say something, it's because I've been sitting on it for a minute.
It's
Because
also
sometimes you may come to something and think you have it, and then you get another piece and be like, wow, well, that's not it. And so we have to be, if we know learn nothing else from this, let's be a little bit more responsible with the things we say
I mean
and the ideas that we forward, because once they go out, it's really hard to retract them. And that's what I would say on the platform and the way in which it the climate or the atmosphere that it creates is for people to get impassioned and people to get excited, and in that excitement they say things, and then you have the whole, yeah, so I just want to apologize. Like if you got to apologize 10 times, you feel me, in the last month with the Yom Kippur apology at 11:59, that means that you are not thinking about what you're saying before you're saying it. So I'm gonna read Dulcina and then I'm gonna come to Sister Mayana. She says, I'm commend sisters for taking the time and having the discussion. However, I look forward to the next time we could get back to normal program. And I feel you. And like I said before, hey, Sister Aisha, welcome to the discussion. This is necessary, right? Because sometimes I just gotta give y'all Jamaican proverbs. Like teeth and tongue will meet. So that essentially means like people are going to get into arguments. People are going to get into confrontations, and we have to allow for the space to not pretend that it's business as usual. We have to allow for those uncomfortable moments to say, you know what, you stepped on my toes, son. You know what I'm saying? We have to allow for that because that's part of healthy communication and healthy relationships. But if we only talk about it and we never come and be transparent and illustrate what it looks to break apart and come back together or disagree, this is why it was written in the text when Abraham, it wasn't perfect. But why do we have a whole text or a whole portion of script where Abraham and Lot's people is beefing? And then we see how it affects the next chain of events. So it's important to see how communication breaks down and how communication is built up in real time. And the things that we can employ in our own everyday life, because everywhere we go, there's a relationship. At your children's school, at your work, at your place of meeting, in your family, at the dinner table. Those are all relationships, and they do, just like cars or machines, they do and will break down if we don't maintain them. And this is part about this maintain. Thank you so much, Delcina. But I find it, I think it's valuable, because how do we come and speak for 60 some episodes and then not be real? Like, a lot of people's like, I don't want to see it. How do we not be real? That's to say, you know what, I'm human, and these things happen, and this is what happened, and you saw that breakdown right in front of your face. One of the things, and I'll let Mayana tell it, but one of the things that I saw, and I know many of other of us not saw, but envisioned and witnessed, was the breakdown in communication at the end of the show, the farewell show. I was over here in awe. So, you know what I'm saying? I know everybody, for the most part, heard it, who was listening, and to pretend like we didn't hear it and pretend like it's business as usual, I think is doing us as a community a disservice. We might as well address it, feel uncomfortable, work through it, and then we get back on track. What are your thoughts, Sister Maya?
Well, we have. I'll answer that, and then I'll answer what I was trying to say before we went into that. But when it comes to not speaking, excuse me, the proverb. I believe it's a proverb that says that if we don't speak, if we still our lips in that moment, that we're implicit in the sin, that we're guilty of the sin that we're not speaking on, and that's part of perverting justice. So yeah, it's definitely a time to address it and then move on. We definitely want to go back into all of those nation building spaces that we are more, that goes back to business as usual for us. But there's so many things that were said that if they're not addressed, they go on record uncontested. And that's also a problem. There has to be something that's unjust weights. It's unjust ways for us not to put on record what the truth is, which is why, as things were being misrepresented, I made sure that I put, what the people call receipts, in the group, and in a swift action to conceal the truth, it was removed, and I was removed from the group. So those that evidence exists only on my page and one other page that I don't know if Sal has removed that also, but I will put it in another space that can't be touched and can be accessed by everyone. All of this information that was misrepresented. I think like one of the other. I guess when we are we at the ugly yet, sis?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to put it on mute. I had to go roll on some babies. But definitely, we are at the 9:47 hour. Um, so we at the bottom of the 9 o'clock hour. So definitely, we have gone through the good and the bad, and now we up in the ugly section. You know what I'm saying? And beautiful could come from ugly too. You know what I'm saying? But we got to call it what it is. So yes, it's we in the ugly section. So say your piece.
I would say that the ugly would be where integrity and truth was just completely abandoned, and we were just in the space of hurt and anger and this idea or need to be vengeful. At that point, all communication became impossible. Reaching out to one another was impossible. Doors started being shut, and at that point, it's not just bad; it's truly ugly. Um, when there's that kind of communication shut down, the farewell that Amuna was promised became about, even though we were just going to visit and leave, and our side was we don't want to talk about Josh, we just wanted to give Amuna a farewell. And someone called in and said, well, I want to hear about the ultimatum. And we were like, wow, that's really not what we're here for. I'm actually heard saying that's not what we're here for, but the person insisted, and more people insisted, and making things about Josh was something that the callers wanted to do, and Sal wanted to do. Like, yeah, Maya, didn't you say, and didn't they say? And it's like, okay, well, no, and that's not what we're here for. But we were forced to just give me yes or no's, and it was very uncomfortable. And the ultimatum that you can hear for 20 minutes, Amuna trying very gracefully to avoid um, having any kind of uncomfortable farewell, to leave things in the best possible way. That got thwarted several times, and the way the ultimatum came down, wanted had to be discussed, and then we find at the end it actually being demonstrated when a similar ultimatum was issued to me, despite my saying, we're on the air, despite me saying, you sure you want to make this conversation, this decision right now, me saying, can we talk about it later, gave plenty room for this not to happen. But there was this aggressive push to make a decision on the spot, and kind of right now. And that was uncomfortable for not just me, but everyone who heard it. Like, our live feed was populated with the wow face. Like, we got phone calls straight through the night asking what happened. And it was unusual and uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I think that that's another glimpse at the ugly. It was a regrettable scene. I think it was regrettable. I am still at a loss for what possibly happened in that moment. But I know for a fact, first of all, there was a misrepresentation. Two members of the freshman team came in and started making assertions on my behalf. Although I was present and there, to speak for myself, that didn't happen. Two members decided to speak on my behalf and say something directly contrary to what I told them, because that question was posed to me the night before. Mayana, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to stop. I'm going to sit back and watch and see how things play out. That was my answer. That was my answer, to those brothers who knew. They knew, and they still started making. It was very weird for me. That's why I felt like I had to correct the record and say I have not made my mind up in either way. And then Sal was just like, that wasn't acceptable, and I needed to say something right then and there, as I was uncomfortable. I say again for everyone.
So there we go. There we go. We didn't dance around anything. We addressed some of the burning questions on the mind. Delcina says, I'm sorry, I was not implying to address the subject, just saying, no, thank you for stating your feelings. Definitely thank you for stating your feelings. You're entitled to state your thought processes. Indeed, it's something that's shocking, and it kind of progressed kind of quickly. And so you know how something happens so quickly, you're like, whoa, what just happened? You know what I mean? And so you kind of keep revisiting it, trying to make sense of it all. That's kind of how, in the same way, or I would say almost at the same speed that you all received it, that's kind of how I got it.
Yeah.
I was for myself, right? So I
Yeah.
only got it like a few seconds to the degree before you got it.
Yeah.
And so the way in which it's happening is, it's like, we have a 5-second delay. That's kind of how the whole situation came down. So I definitely want to thank you for clarifying. Like I said, we're going to come back and talk about this domestic discipline
Yes.
conversation that seems to be proper locking on Facebook, where it's being introduced. We covered it before, where it was in the wider community. It was something that was coming out of the cult of domesticity, and reemerged when the masculine principle, or the European male, the dominant European male in society, was trying to push his women back in the kitchen. And so you see it coming up. If you want to do a little research before the discussion, you see it coming up like in spaces of like I Love Lucy. You see her getting put over Ricardo's lap and spanking. You see it in commercials. You see it in adverts from around that time. And what happened was, now someone has put a melanated face on it. And so you have a whole melanated group who's saying that they can't control themselves. And so they go into this relationship or this agreement with their partner for when they get out of hand, he's supposed to beat them. And then
Right.
they describe, and it's wild and crazy, y'all. If y'all didn't see the first episode, check it out. I'm gonna drop it in the box, because they go on to describe, what you can beat them with. And you can beat them with a spoon or a paddle or maybe a hand. How many times you want this hit? So it's kind of like, it's you prearranging your butt whipping, right?
Right.
And it has just come up again. It was dropped in my box. I was taken aback. Okay. But
Yeah.
it came up again, where Hebrew Israelite went to go and find validity for what was done on Friday night on Debate Talk Field. by
Right.
saying this was a virtual form of domestic discipline. So this is something that if hey now we're gonna come back and talk about this, and there's some scriptures that go along with it. So we're gonna review his scriptures, see whether or not that, again, this is another doctrine, because somebody can easily take this. It's being shared now, and it definitely is a conversation starter. And somebody can really easily take this, and next thing you know, you walk into a Knesset that has some new rules about how you can beat your wife.
Right. And that goes back into the conversation we're having about intimate partner and domestic violence. We see a rise of women coming out and saying men are beating them. And if we have people saying there's doctrine, that there's scriptures that justify this beating, then what are we saying to the women? What do we say? You know, women get deactivated in that space. They don't feel like they have anywhere to go, and now their faith communities have turned against them because they believe that it's codified in the word. And so that's
Because go ahead.
no,
Sorry,
that's
go ahead.
no, Salika. So that's one of the reasons why, these domestic trainings that we're having in March and May and June are important, and they're specific to the Hebrew community. I'm sure I've spoken about it before. If you are curious about that, then I don't want to take up any time talking about it here, but you can always reach Amuna and myself about anything we talk about at under the palm the number 2 at gmail.com. So under the palm 2 at gmail.com. You can send us your suggestions for conversations or any questions and follow up on anything you hear on this station.
All right, thank you for that. I'm gonna give y'all a little preview because we're at the 10 o'clock hour, and I definitely look forward to these lively spiritual conversations. So if you're enjoying it and people are asking where are we, we're gonna be over here 8 o'clock on Mondays. But I'm gonna give you a way in which the fanciful weaving of the scripture goes, right? So I'm just gonna give y'all a little intro. I'm just gonna give y'all a little intro. It intros like this: domestic discipline is a submissive marriage lifestyle that encourages husbands to spank their wives for mistakes or misbehavior. Domestic discipline is non erotic. Domestic discipline is an essential part of the marital relationship. Domestic discipline provides a physical correction with one who truly cares. Now, I want to jump down to one of the Proverbs, and then it says domestic discipline in marriage Bible study. So Proverbs is given 5, 19, 26, and then Sirach, which I think, depending on where the woman is, if this is beat into her head, because a lot of time it's not like, oh, sister, here's the script. It's beat into your head. It's repeated. I've heard women say that the way in which the scripture it is repeated, like it's used as a dagger to keep on stabbing her until she conforms. So one of the things that he gave in his Bible study, and hopefully I asked the brother if he was willing to come on, I would look forward to that conversation. But one of the things he quoted was Sirach 26. Now listen to this. A shameful wife is vulgar in public, but a good woman is modest, even alone with her husband. If a wife does what she pleases, she's no better than a dog. But if she is ashamed to do wrong, she will fear the Most High, right? Everyone can tell that a wife is wise if she honors her husband, but if she is proud and refuses, they will see she is ungodly. Yes, a man who is married to a good woman is happy, and he will live twice as long, 27. But the constant talking of a loud wife is a trumpet signal for a battle to begin, and her family will live in the chaos of war. So one could easily interpret that scripture to say, see here, sister, in 27, if you're loud, that means, the battle is beginning. But keep in mind, the very beginning of this conversation of domestic discipline is that it's mutual. She agrees to getting beat, or even she's browbeaten to getting beat, or whatever the case may be. We see how the thought process has already started in actually trying to validate this in the text. And this is where we find things become dangerous and embed ourselves into our culture. So these are why we have to be vigilant about what we allow into our spaces. So that's just a little preview, y'all. That's a little preview. Sister Mina, you have some closing thoughts? You want to talk about that, the intro, or you have any closing thoughts?
I really want to say we have so much on domestic discipline, and we have a lot on the cult of true womanhood. We did a whole study and an expose on that idea of the cult of true womanhood, and what was it? How else did they frame it? It was two ways that they framed it.
The angel in the house.
Right. No, it was the cult of true womanhood and something else. But yeah,
Domesticity.
when, huh?
The cult of domesticity.
Yeah, the cult of domesticity, right? The cult of domesticity and the cult of true womanhood. So we did an entire series on that. We did a series on uh, what was it? Black women something or other, Black women liberation or something like
No,
that.
manifesto.
Yeah, the Black Woman Manifesto. So we have a lot of material. Again, interrogating information. We did a lot of interrogating information. I think one other thing, because it was really big point was made of it in the volume 2 show that Josh did. Although there's a series of things that I need to correct, but one thing I really want to correct is that much ado was made about this accusation that I had a problem with being called a female. That didn't happen. That literally didn't happen. There are, like, I have screenshots of my response to him, and literally the word female isn't even in there. The person that said, "Why are you calling them females?" was a brother in the comment section. And so he was like, "What's wrong with calling them females?" to a brother. That's not even a conversation he had with me. So this whole like lead up to, oh, she doesn't like being called a female, which means she's a feminine. I mean, all these other kinds of conclusions that got built on top of a false premise, and to the point that it's like, it became this ballooning accusation that went into 5,000 different directions. It needs to be understood that at no point did I say I had an issue with being called a female. I asked why our womanhood was the focus instead of the conversations that we were having. I also never said that men couldn't be addressed. I asked him about the hierarchy list that he gave, and then he gave like half a dozen verses that again didn't address this idea of a hierarchy. So there were so many places where I understand that he was had a visceral maybe response to what was going on, but none of the reactions were rooted in any kind of veracity. None of it was true. Also, I never called him homophallic. I don't even know what a homophallic is.
Oh,
I
wait,
mean,
my
like that was, yeah. At that point I literally chuckled because I was like, "What is homophallic?" I called him
yeah.
no, I called him homosocial. I didn't call him homophallic. I said he had a phallic preoccupation because he's always looking for men, where the scripture clearly says that whenever a woman was qualified, that idea of it being a strictly male space got unseated. I literally said that. The Most High will raise up who's qualified, even if that's a woman. And I said that he was being homosocial by not looking for other people to be in that space, and that to look for only men was a phallic preoccupation. Somehow those two words got married, and I wasn't
Homophobic.
invited to the wedding. And suddenly he created a new term and then kind of gave it to me. So yeah, there's just a lot. And I again, I'll put the list together to correct all of those uh, misstatements, and make that available for the people. But I guess my final thoughts after this is already 3 minutes past the 10 o'clock hour is, for those of you who joined us, for those of you who are still with us and supported us, and even if you're here just to see where we were going, I appreciate your curiosity. I appreciate the fact that you're here, me just still at least open to hearing things, because it's very easy to simply shut the door and walk away and stew in whatever notions you have already come into contact with. But instead, once again, you're listening to us, whether again it's just to seethe at the sound of our voices. You're here, and I appreciate you. I can't see the comment sections, so I've been very happy to hear Amuna read your thoughts to us. So for all those of you who showed up in the comment section, Lila Tove and Toda for coming.
All right, thank you. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. And see, we didn't even get ratchet in the comment section on our own channel. See, because Sister Mayana could tell you, I'll be the one who'll be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I'm saying? Careful how
Right,
we writing out stuff in these streets. That has always been my awareness, and I think this is a word of caution to us all. Be aware of how we represent or misrepresent ourselves, and by extension, our Creator everywhere we go. That includes
right,
the supermarket. the comment sections under the video, your live streams, wherever you go, whatever you do. Remember that you are representing the true and living power, and you must always never let your emotions take you to a place where screenshot. Oh yeah, see I got your little hair on the screenshot. You know what I'm saying? You gotta always be cognizant, always stay present, so that you know what you're doing and what you're not doing.
Oh wait,
Again,
oh wait. Oh, I just want to touch that right quick, really quick, because that was also funny to me when Josh said, "Oh, I have these screenshots from behind the scenes that like they had this clandestine conversation that nobody was supposed to hear." The message that was mumbled through in those spaces, again, I'll give you that. Um, that wasn't a behind the scene conversation because Sal asked me to type out what he wanted to show Josh. So what I gave Sal and what was read on the air was always meant for Josh to see. It wasn't a secret conversation that suddenly got revealed in the 11th hour and ooh, I caught my honor. Sal asked me to write out a statement and told me, "Give me what you want me to tell Josh, so that he doesn't misunderstand again." Because somehow he got police involved and all kinds of things that I didn't say. So he asked me. Sal said, "Let me know so I can show it to Josh." So this idea that Josh, uncovered my dirty little secret. I'm like, that didn't happen either. But that was fun. They Toda Amuna for letting me get that out.
all right, no problem. For those who are listening, if you want to be on the other side, I keep saying it, y'all are shy and stuff. If you have something to say and you want the little clicky button so that you can come on the panel, as long as we keep it still clean and professional, then you are welcome to have the discussion. So again, thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for allowing us to clear it up. If you're still confused, check the link I put in the box with the article about the sequence of events and what happened and where the transgressions, and don't just make up stuff calling people all kind of names. It's unnecessary. You know what I mean? It's unnecessary. So hopefully we learn something and we grow from this. And may the Most High continue to be with us. I want to thank you for tuning in. I don't have any outro music or none of that good stuff, but I want to thank you for tuning in, and everybody have a good night. Sheikah says she missed something. Just hit me up, Sheikah. Let me know what you missed, and I'll send it over to you if you desire. So once again, see you next Monday, 8 o'clock. If you have any subject matter that you would like to go over, drop it in the box. And then, you know what I'm saying? Come on through. All right, everybody. Have a blessed night.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.